Let me tell you about bloodworms. They are the most scary and gross creatures you can imagine. These things have 4 poisoned teeth in each corner of their mouth. And trust me, you don't want to get bit by them. He's famous for keeping really weird pets. So when he found a website that sells these things as fishing bait, he knew he had to get some. Nobody buys these as pets. He thinks he's going to be the first person in the whole world to do this. That means he gets to show everyone how crazy these creatures really are. After he ordered them online, a truck came to his house with a package. He was super excited but also pretty scared to open it up. Even though he knows a lot about animals, these bloodworms still give him the creeps. Inside the package, hidden under all the packing stuff, were the bloodworms. He used special tweezers to pick one up and take a closer look. Man, these things are absolutely disgusting. Their mouth can stick way out of their body like in an alien movie. At the end of that stretchy mouth part are those poisoned teeth they use to grab onto shrimp in the ocean. Here's the crazy part. He bought 12 of these bloodworms and he has to keep them all in the same tank together. This is going to be a total nightmare. Now he had to build them a home. First, he put in some special dirt for aquariums and mixed it with regular dirt. Bloodworms live underwater in the wild, so he knew he'd need to fill the whole thing with water later. For now, he just added a tiny bit of water to keep the dirt nice and wet. But then he messed up big time. He added the water straight to the dirt, which made it all muddy and gross. The water turned completely black. It looked terrible. So he had to drain all the water out, scoop out the dirt, and wash it in his sink. Then he put the clean dirt back in, covered it with a thin layer of sand, and added the water back. This time, the water stayed perfectly clear. Much better. He made a little hill in the middle, where he could put decorations. He also planned to add some red plants, and then fill the whole thing up with water. Next, he got some pieces of wood that looked burnt and stuck them in the middle. He thought it looked pretty cool, having multiple pieces coming up from the center. Some pieces were sticking out too high, so he broke them off and planted them in the sand below to make the whole wood structure look fuller. Then it was time for rocks. You might think these are just regular river rocks, but actually they have really cool names. This one is called an elderly boulder, and this other one is called a black venom boulder. He thought those were awesome names. But the best rock he has isn't actually a rock at all. It's wood. It's called petrified wood, which means millions of years ago it was buried underground and slowly turned into rock over time. Pretty cool, right? Behind this wooden rock, he had a sneaky plan. He took a can of sardines, those little dead fish people eat, and hid one of them under the petrified wood. He wanted to test if bloodworms can smell food and see if they could find the sardine, dig it out, and eat it. That should be really fun to watch. Now he needed some red water plants to match the bloodworm theme. He drove to the pet store hoping they had some in stock. But when he got there, they didn't have a single red plant. They usually have them, but he guessed not that day. So he had to drive home and buy some plants online instead. There were tons of websites selling water plants, so he added a bunch to his cart. It was going to be pretty expensive, but he thought it was worth it for these cool red plants. Since he paid for super fast delivery, the plants arrived the next day. He took them all out and started planting them in random spots in the sand. Some of the plants they sent him weren't actually red, they were green. But that was okay because he was starting to like how everything looked together. He also got these red ruby crystals that he scattered on the floor of the tank to add more red color to match the bloodworms. He kept both sides of the tank empty on purpose because he wanted to build some special things that the 12 bloodworms could play with. On the right side, he decided to make a cave where they could all hide. He remembered a cool trick from before, where you take a basket, cut a hole in the front, and cover it with rocks to make your own cave. But this time he used 3 different baskets to make a triple-decker cave. He cut holes in the front of each basket to be the entrance, sanded them so they weren't sharp, and covered all the baskets with spray foam. Then he carved the foam to make it look like real cave rocks. So, the finished triple-decker cave looked pretty good. It might not be the prettiest thing in the world, but he put a lot of thought into it, and now he could store 3 different worms in there. For the left side, he had something really interesting planned. A food platter. He was going to prepare different types of food for the bloodworms so he could see which ones they liked best. He went to the store to buy food for the bloodworms. First, he got some beef because he used the same stuff when he had pet leeches before, and they absolutely loved it. He had trouble getting them off of it. Then he went to the fish section and bought some salmon. Salmon live in saltwater with bloodworms in the wild, so he figured they might like to eat that. He also got some shrimp because when you look up what bloodworms eat online, it says shrimp. So if nothing else worked, they should at least eat this. Finally, he bought some fish food pellets from the aquarium section because maybe the bloodworms would eat those too. When he got home, he laid out all the food in the order he planned to feed it to the bloodworms. He was so excited to watch their fangs rip the food apart. But first, he had to fill the tank with water and get the bloodworms inside. He had to take the food out temporarily so it wouldn't get soggy underwater. He put it in his fridge to keep it fresh. He started filling the tank with water so the bloodworms could swim around. But when it got about 30% full, he realized he had made a huge mistake. Bloodworms live on ocean beaches, and ocean water has salt in it. He had been making a freshwater tank with regular water. Luckily, he had 2 big containers of real Pacific Ocean water in his garage. Don't ask me why he has ocean water, he just does. He drained out some of the fresh water and added the salty ocean water. By the time the tank was full, the salt level was perfect for bloodworms. But this created another problem. Since he put salt water in the tank, all those expensive freshwater plants he bought for $200 were going to die. Salt water kills freshwater plants. Since all the plants were going to die anyway, he needed to keep the red theme somehow. So he got a special red light that doesn't make heat. It made the water have this cool red color, which was perfect because the water should look a little bit like blood when you have bloodworms in it. He also needed to add some snails to eat any green algae that might grow in the tank. Lucky for him, he had another tank with about 30 snails in it. They were called nerite snails, and they can live in salt water, so they were perfect for this job. He put a few snails in the bloodworm tank. Once they got used to the water, they came out of their shells and started moving around on the glass. He thought they should be safe from the bloodworms because of their hard shells, but he wasn't 100% sure. Sorry, snails, if you get eaten. For the final touch, he found a picture of a "Beware of Dog" sign online and used a computer program to change it to say "Beware of Worm" instead. It looked absolutely perfect. He printed it out, attached it to cardboard to make a real sign, and put it on the tank. He even splattered some red paint on the sides of the tank to make it look like blood splatters. There we go, a 100% complete bloodworm home. Now there was only one thing left to do: put the bloodworms inside. He decided to start with just one worm first, then add the others as he tested different foods. He put the first worm in the tank, and it sank down to the bottom and started moving around randomly. This is basically all bloodworms do. They just wiggle around, and sometimes they dig under the sand, which is where they spend most of their lives. It didn't take long before this guy started digging under the sand, but then he got bored and came back out to wiggle around above the sand again. Before he tried to bury himself again, the pet owner wanted to feed him some food to see what bloodworms like best. He started with the fish food pellets. He wasn't sure if the worm would eat them, but it was worth trying. There was a problem, though. The fish food was floating on top of the water, and the bloodworm wasn't going to swim up to get it. So he used tweezers to pick up the food and move it toward the worm. When he moved the food close to him, the worm actually showed his fangs at the guy for the first time. He thought this meant the worm was hungry, so he started waving the food around in front of his mouth. But nothing happened. The worm didn't eat it at all. So he gave fish food a 0 out of 10 because the worm didn't even want it. Next, he tried the salmon. This stuff was really smelly and oily, so he thought the worm just had to eat it. He added 2 more bloodworms to the tank so there was a better chance one of them would eat it. Then he wiggled the salmon around in front of their mouths, just like before. But just like with the fish food, these worms didn't want anything to do with the salmon either. He thinks bloodworms need to have their mouths stretched out with their fangs showing to eat food. Right now, their mouths were pulled back inside, because they were probably stressed from being in a new place. So he put all 12 bloodworms in the tank and just let them chill out for a while. He figured if he left them alone for a few hours, they would get used to their new home, and then they would want to eat. After waiting a while, he took one bloodworm out and put him on dry land. He waited for him to stick his mouth out, and when he did, he grabbed him with tweezers. Now you could really see the fangs up close. What makes these fangs so cool is that they're actually made of copper, like the metal you find underground. Bloodworms are the only animals in the whole world with copper teeth. He brought this bloodworm up to the third type of food, the beef. After kind of shoving his face into it, the worm instantly bit down with all 4 fangs and started eating the piece of meat, sucking all the juices out of it. It took him a long time to get a bloodworm to eat, but man, it was so cool when he finally did. Look, he's shaking the meat around and the worm won't let go. It's like the worm is saying, "I'm eating this, don't take it away from me." He decided to try the same thing with the last food, the shrimp. When another worm stuck his mouth out, he grabbed him and put the shrimp in front of him. The worm immediately grabbed onto it too. Now these 2 bloodworms were having the time of their lives eating their food. After about an hour, he had to remove the food from them, which was pretty hard because he had to shake them off. That was really cool to watch. You could see the little bite marks where the worms had been biting. Remember, these guys have poison in their teeth, so there was literally venom sitting on the food. But he had one more fun idea. He wanted to show someone else these crazy pets, so he went to get his mom.
Ew, they look like some sort of slug, leeches, snakes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had snakes, I've had leeches, but these are actually bloodworms.
Oh my gosh. Ew, look at all the little tentacles.
And yeah, actually, there's some right here.
Go.
So that purple right there, that's the mouth of the worm. And if you look very, very closely, you see those 4 little fangs on it.
Oh my gosh, that's so this is probably the most disgusting thing yet.
I know, that's what I'm thinking, and yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
Well guys, these are pet bloodworms for you. And
That's the story of his pet bloodworms. He's starting to understand why they were only sold as fishing bait instead of pets. They're pretty cool creatures, but definitely not for everyone.